do you just want to be the main fucking character in your own movie and you want to be James Bond?
Welcome to the Lazy Money Machine, where we show you the easy, no-nonsense way to financial and time freedom.
Welcome back to the Lazy Money Machine podcast. And today we want to focus on a very specific topic, and that is how not to care about what other people think of you. So this is something that is really key to, I think, being successful, being independent, being level-headed. And it's something that many people suffer from not being too good at. So a lot of people are being affected by what other people think of you. David brought this topic up. David, welcome to the podcast.
I am very excited to be here and talk about something that I'm really good at, not giving a shit what people think about me.
Okay, so let's dive right in. Why is it so important, and how come you're not affected about what people think of you?
Oh, I think that everyone is affected at one level or another. It does affect you. So there is no way that you can say that you are completely immune to it. But there are different levels that you can let it affect you. You should be worried about what people think. I mean, we live in a society with other people, right? So the reality is that because we live in that level of society, we have to be aware. We cannot make our own laws, okay? We all live together that way. But if it's affecting your decision-making, your thinking, it can stop you from flourishing and growing into the person that you're supposed to be. It can stop your business. It can stop the people that you care about. And it's a key thing that I see as a major problem in today's investors and business owners, that they do everything just to please and to be normal. The reality is that normality doesn't sell, doesn't work. It doesn't make you happy or successful. For me, one of the key things about not caring what people think is that it makes you happy. It takes that weight off your shoulders. If I say something and I piss people off, well, you know what? I don't care. And that means that I'm free to express my opinion, and without that feeling that I have a sword on top of my head, and if I say something wrong, it's going to be chopped off. And that gives me a level of awareness and speed of action and concentration in a way that I cannot have if I'm thinking about another million things and what anyone else's opinion is going to be like. For example, let me actually give you an example of this, because that's pretty important. When we started with the pandemic, and we had a pandemic special recently. We started with this pandemic, and I was very vocal fairly soon into it because I felt like it was the right thing to do. And a lot of people came to me literally and said, "What you're doing, are you sure that you know what you're doing? Shouldn't you be worried about it? Shouldn't be worried about your family? Shouldn't be worried about this and that?" And obviously, people were talking. People felt that this was something that shouldn't happen. And the funny thing is that they weren't so much arguing my points. They were arguing that I was prepared to make points that weren't agreeable by the majority of the people. And that's what made me think, holy shit, because I don't care about what people think. I am prepared to think differently and act differently. And the reality is that if you don't think and act differently, you do not get different things. You get what everyone else gets. And if it was enough, you wouldn't try to do the things that we're telling you to do. For example, financially, but yes, even in terms of happiness. So if you're doing what everyone else is doing, you're going to get what everyone else is getting. So I'm very prepared to think outside the box and piss people off and not worry about that, because I know that if I do that, I'm in the right track. I'm looking at life in a different way. It's a very scientific way of looking at life, right? Science is never dogmatic. Science is about looking at things in a different way and about expressing that in terms of theories and then proving your theory. That's exactly what I'm doing when it comes to my language and the way that I look at life. I don't care that it pisses people off. I mean, Galileo didn't get pissed off or didn't care that when he put the sun centric instead of earth-centric theory out there that he pissed people off or the authorities. Well, that's life. You have to ruffle a few feathers. You have to think differently. And if you're too worried about what people think, you're like, oh, that Galileo guy is nuts. He thinks that the Earth is not the center of the universe. Who would have thought that? Well, if you don't think that way, nothing else changes, nothing else moves. You don't come up with different ideas, different ways of solving problems. And that's what we get paid to do, to solve problems and thinking them in a different way. So you should make a habit of thinking and doing things in a different way every day of your life. And I rejoice and I enjoy that confrontation that sometimes comes from having a different opinion and not worrying about what people think, just saying it as it is, being sometimes a bit too crude and I'm PC. I just say it, and then it creates confrontation because someone gets offended. I fucking hate that when people get offended. Right?
It's the unfortunate part of human nature, right? I mean, if you're pushing the buttons, then people get offended, right?
Yeah, I struggle getting offended these days. Maybe that's part. It comes with it, right? So because I am quick to just say that and not care, I don't really get offended as well when people try to say something like sometimes even friends and stuff would say something to me, and my wife's like, "Didn't that piss you off?" I'm like, "Why?" To me, I don't see it as an offensive thing because probably the ego also is very separated from my thoughts and who I am. It's very different things, anyways. So it's just figuring it out that being that different person that creates these confrontations at times, because you say it as it is going to create a more deep, meaningful relationship. We were talking about before how powerful it is for humans, and you were actually telling me about a friend that you have a couple of beers with. You were telling me that a specific story, and then we were talking about it. I'm like, yeah, that for us as humans is essential, to just sit down and talk about a deep topic and really bare your soul, really, having a couple of drinks with a friend. There is something so beautiful about it. But I think that a very similar level of connection comes from an argument, from a confrontation. That only happens when you don't care about what other people think. If you are too worried about what the other person is going to say, you're never going to say that, so it's never going to get to that point. So you never get deep enough. Everything is shallow. Everything is just, ugh. Everything is chit-chat. I hate chit-chat. I want to go deep. If I don't go deep, what's the fucking point? There is no depth. There is no value. So for me, it's essential to a good, successful life to have that level of awareness that what other people think is none of your business.
Interesting. So a couple of things that I want to add there. The other thing, okay, now first I want to ask you a question. So does this come from having a lot of self-confidence? And if so, isn't it hard for people who are less self-confident to have the same attitude?
It's almost like a magnifying glass, right? I think it was always there. I think that always had that that part of my personality is being there all the time, that I didn't really care what or didn't think or didn't bother me what people thought of me. Mm-hmm. But the more successful that you are, the less you have to lose, because you know you're going to be fine anyways, and you know there's no monetary repercussions that you should be worried about or anything like that. The more that it comes out, right? And I think that that's why a lot of rich people or all people become less become more like this, right? So you see the typical old guy that just says it as it is, and it can sound sometimes completely un-PC, but that's just because the filter goes away, because you know that it's not about what other people think. It's about making your points, about having values. It's about being able to attract the right people around you. But you're 100% correct in a way that the more successful that you are, the more settled that you are, the more time you spend with yourself, and you really understand who you are, the less that you give a shit about anything else. It becomes just so unimportant that you just don't think about it twice. I think Tony Robbins says that, you know, if it's not gonna matter in 5 years, don't give it 5 minutes of your time. And that's a way that I look at life in most situations. Like, well, this is honestly, I'm not even going to remember in 5 years this moment. Why should I actually worry? Why should I worry about saying this? Why should I worry about pissing someone off? if someone is going to be offended by something that I say when it's not intentional, look at the whole thing here is not to hurt people. No, that's not what I'm saying. You shouldn't try to hurt people, but sometimes people need to hear something that's going to feel hurtful to them. For example, I've told plenty of people they should not be entrepreneurs. And I think this is the disease that we have created in our society, where people think that anyone can be an entrepreneur. Fuck no, okay? The vast majority of people should never try to run a business. You're not good enough for it. You don't have the guts. You don't have the mental capacity. You don't have it. And one of the biggest things that I tell people, especially when you worry too much about what people think, you cannot run a business effectively. You can't. It's impossible, because you'll be thinking too much about what everyone else is thinking, and you will not be able to make decisions. So you cannot do it. And I tell people that straight up: do not run a business. Do not invest now, because I know that they're not ready. I'm not telling them to piss them off. I'm telling them because I know that it's for their best interest. If they take it the wrong way, it's their problem, not mine. I'm just telling them because I know what it takes. Okay. And that's the kind of stuff that I do, that it's not necessarily popular, but then people in a few years' time will probably come and tell me, like, you know what, you were right. They appreciate that. And I'd rather be appreciated by saying the truth than liked for a few minutes for telling people what they want to hear. It's not what I do, is not who I am. So it's going to be a straight up thing. I mean, I think it also is cultural, right? Because and it goes against my culture. In Spain, everything is about, being nice to one another and being social and not pissing people off. While on the other hand, people like, you Dutch, you guys are pretty fucking abrupt, right? You will.
Can you imagine the problems I had in Indonesia? I mean, this is a culture of covering everything up, being nice, stabbing you in the back while being nice to you in front of you, in the worst version of it. So yeah, I had lots of problems being straightforward and direct. And what I realized is that in the 25 or 23 years that I've lived here, I've become more Asian, right? So I've become more subtle and more careful and more and less for sure less direct, although my wife will probably disagree. But I've lost quite a lot of that bluntness and that directness from being here. Now, I don't see that really as a negative. I think with me tuning it down to from 10 to 4 is still a good thing. So yeah, for me, I've become a lot less direct. And there's a few things that came up while you were talking, which I wanted to share. One of the things is, if you're worried about what other people think of you, it's going to massively impact the speed with which you take decisions. Because if you're always depending on listening to others on what you should be doing, it's going to really impact how quick you take decisions from your gut, from your own instinct, from your own analysis. And in business and in doing things, that's going to really hurt you, because if business favors speed, right? So if you're quick with things, that is usually a good thing. That's one thing. And the other thing that I wanted to add to this is that if you're very depending on how other people feel about you, it's very hard to really find your personal why, your personal mission in life, your personal thing that you want to do. Because as you mentioned, right, if you follow everybody else, you're going to fall into the path of doing what everybody else is doing. And therefore, you're going to have the life that everybody else has. So if you want to be a unique you and a creative you and an innovative you, then you need to go and find your why. And listening to others is not going to help you with that. And then the last thing that is happening with me is that the only thing we need to be worried about if we're speaking our mind directly and often is that if we come across as knowing, or if we come across as teaching, or if we come across as wanting to prove a point, the reason why people don't like it is because it triggers a fundamental fear, and it's the fear of not being good enough. Because if I tell you, David, you're stupid in doing this, or you shouldn't be buying gold, or you shouldn't be going and investing in medical companies because this, and this. If you're not strong, and most people are not strong in their opinion, they will start to feel, well, wait a minute, that means that, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not good enough. So that's why a lot of people are triggered by people that come across as opinionated or straightforward or direct, right? And that's why a lot of people that are very strong in their opinion are being hated, because it triggers the fear by many people of not being good enough, right? That's why people like Dan Pena or Dan Locke, right? These guys that are out there very vocal and very direct and very masculine get a lot of haters, because it triggers the fear of other people not being good enough. So that's what we need to realize. It doesn't mean we shouldn't be doing it, but it does mean that that's the reason why many people have a difficulty handling it.
I completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
And then one last thing that I wanted to add, and that is me personal, and that is that I really like to please people. I like to help people. I like to be of service. I like to do things to help people. Either in events or in online or helping somebody with a school. I like to help people. What I realized in this last year is that means that if I do that, I'm looking for approval. So by doing this, by pleasing others, I have an inherent need to be liked, meaning I want people to like me. I want them to be positive around me. And what I learned, also by talking to you, by the way, also what I learned from this is that if you don't watch out, this can be a good character trait, you wanting to help people, you being nice. But what it can do is it can distract you from the things that are really important in your life. It can distract you from spending time with your family because you're taking too much time away. It can distract you from building your own wealth. It can distract you from building your own passion project. Pleasing others is not always a positive trait. And for me, for sure, in this year, pleasing, I think, is a way of being sensitive to the opinions of others, even though I deny that, right? I tell myself, I don't want to, I don't care what other people think, but there is a subtle way whereby if you're always serving others, it's exactly the same thing. And you need to be really careful that it doesn't show up in that way for you, because it can be very distracting, and it has been very distracting for me this year. And now I'm saying no a lot more, and it makes me feel a lot better because I now get to choose, the projects that I want to spend time on, and I spend the time on those.
Mm. Yeah, and there's quite a few things and quite stories that come out of those comments. I like that, being of service and being kind is a good thing. It really is. But you're 100% right. You have to make sure that it doesn't dominate your life and who you are. And that, that's a hard act to balance. That's a reality of it. We're always trying to get better when it comes to that. And as long as you're happy, that's what I say. I think you're doing the right thing. So don't overcomplicate this too much. It's just about being happy, getting whatever that takes. But I have a story actually yesterday. It's an interesting story because I obviously, as we know, that I'm vocal about the COVID and lockdowns and the Swedish model that has been, to me, more successful than any other model. And there was a piece of article in the newspaper saying that they were toughening the Swedish measures in terms of the lockdown or whatever it is. I think it's not really, it's a soft lockdown, whatever they want to call it. That they were going to restrict the number of people that could join up, right, and have a meeting. And a guy that it's obviously very pro lockdown and vaccinations and everything else that's going on, send me the article, kind of like I told you so kind of thing. And I'm like, well, I sent him the data of the number of deaths that are actually occurring in Sweden, which is sweet fuck all. That's really the reality. And I'm like, well, I'm not really scared yet. So yes, even if they're restricting a little bit, that's probably a good thing because you don't want to have a bad flu season with something else. I get that. That's logical up to a certain point, but you're not making the point. What point are you trying to make? And it's because he was triggered. He's been triggered by what I say for quite a while. And it's not just him. I mean, you get a lot of messages like that of people that just get triggered. They get really pissed off and frustrated, and then I give them more information, and then he just said, well, you're just being like the fucking idiotic Trump, literally fucking idiotic Trump supporters who are debating the result of the election. And you see, that's what a normal child does in a way. It's children behavior. You cannot have when you don't have arguments, when you cannot really argue a point, you just basically resort to insults. Uh, yes, it's a little tantrum. Yeah, it's a little tantrum. It's a 2-year-old tantrum. And I thought, well, it's I don't really like when people say things like that. But what? And he was talking about experts, listening to the expert. Like, who's an expert for you? Because obviously, the problem with people at the moment, especially with this kind of nonsense, is that they get triggered because they've created an idea that it's unbreakable, and they cannot separate themselves from that idea that they created in your head, because that becomes who you are. And if you're not that, then your whole world breaks down. So it's like, what, the experts that you believe on are better than the experts that I believe on? Can I believe in any experts? Can I just do something? And he couldn't deal with it. And it's an interesting thing that people get triggered and pissed off and so angry about it and aggravated. But I actually find it interesting and fun, and I want to argue a point. But since I couldn't argue a point, I'm like, that's fine, man. Just take the vaccine, save some lives, do your shit, man. Just go. You're gonna be fine, man. But it doesn't bug me anymore, and I even respond to a few of those funny kind of messages. But I will not go into a fight. It's not something that, because I always think that arguing with an idiot only creates two idiots, right? So, but it stopped. The guy is an idiot, obviously. He will be listening to the podcast anyways, which will be quite funny because I think he gets so triggered it almost turns him on, right? And it's not something that you should do. So you shouldn't worry about what people think, and you should be strong enough in your convictions not to be dragged into a shitty argument that is gonna suck away your time. And even if you're not arguing, even if you're thinking about it, like I haven't thought about it since that last message that I sent him to, go and get in the line to get vaccinated. That's the last time that I talked to the guy, or that I sent him. I haven't thought about it. I don't let them occupy space in my head. I just don't. And I always say that's like having someone living rent free in your house, right? When it's letting you, someone's opinion, it's letting or messing up the way that you're living your life. And I just cannot comprehend how anyone can actually live a good, happy, fruitful life when you're thinking about what someone else is thinking. It'd be terrible. And now, because it's so deep in me, I struggle to even see it on people. And when I see it on people, I'm like, well, just snap out of this shit. Start living your life. Stop thinking about what other people think. Stop trying to comply by their vision of their life. It's what you said before. It's just find your own vision. Find your own happy place. Whatever that is irrelevant. Just be happy. Be yourself. And you can honestly only be yourself when you don't care about what society thinks of you. Obviously, you're going to have, like I said before, you have to live within that society, but be unique, be different. Don't be afraid of confronting people. Be excited about doing so. Be excited about speaking up. We all have such a limited amount of time that we'll be thinking about that, about the thoughts that we have of what people think of us in 10, 20 years time. And be like, why did we even remotely give a shit about that person? And I have so many people close to me, and I'm not going to say names, but I have so many stories of them. They just live their lives so preoccupied about what their friends are going to say, what their business partners are going to say, what their spouses are going to say or think. Just don't live your life like that. It's not worth it. Just be you and be genuine. I think that's another big topic that comes out of this, right? It's being true to yourself, being genuine. That makes your life so much more passionate and happy and right. It really comes down to that, and I absolutely love that. And it's some of the things that I like about talking to you. That you say things as it is. You're a bit more, how can I put it, supportive of ideas. I get that. You're more open to ideas than I can be at times, but It's just because usually I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know why it is that way. That's a reality of it. Never really thought about it. But I am open in a different way. I'm open in a way that I feel like my door needs to be knocked down. And a lot of people don't understand that, right? So I am okay with someone debating me. I don't get upset about it. I don't take it personally, and that's because I don't care what you think of me. It's this the two different things. It's my ideas and me, and I know you're not attacking me. You're attacking my ideas. So why should I worry about it? That's the other big thing here, right? Like if most people feel that when they're attacking your idea, they're attacking you personally. No, they're not. They're attacking maybe a concept that you said, something that you expressed, something that you did, but that's not who you are. Once you separate that, all of a sudden the confrontation just changes, doesn't it? You're like, oh shit, that's not, it's just about something else. It's not about me. The problem is when you make it about me, when you have the bullshit thing, I'm offended. You're attacking me. Nah, no one is attacking you. It's bullshit. It's about something that they don't agree with. Yeah.
One thing that is really linked to this is the need to be liked, and that's even more so now, of course, with social media, whereby we're all chasing the thumbs up and the likes and the hearts and the whatever. That's just an expression, I think, of a deep underlying feeling for many people that they want to be liked, and being liked is okay. I want to be liked by my wife, by my kids, but if you base your whole life around wanting to be liked, then as you said, right, you're playing to the balcony, as we had in a very old episode, right? Where David Bowie said that, right? If you're playing to the balcony, means you're doing things to fit in. You're doing things to be liked. You're doing things so society thinks you're a normal person. You fit in. And those things are boring, right? People that make changes, people that do something in life that is interesting and worthwhile and noticing, they step out of that, right? And they create a podcast, or they go on stage and teach people, or they create a company, or they fail at creating a company, or whatever it is. They create beautiful music. They whatever it is, the outliers of the world make life so much more fun. And it's really a question to you if you're listening, and that is that, do you just want to be an extra in somebody else's movie, or do you want to be the main fucking character in your own movie and you want to be James Bond, right? That's really the question, because if you're not waking up and you're not being yourself and you're not, letting go of other people's opinion, you're going to be the extra in somebody else's movie, and it's a boring life. So the choice is really yours. You can make a choice and be a superstar Hollywood movie star in your own movie, or you can just, revert to becoming an extra in somebody else's. And that's really what it's about, I think.
I'm leaving it like this. I think that's it. Be James Bond, motherfucker. Be James Bond.
You've been listening to The Lazy Money Machine. Find out more at lazymoneymachine.com.